What reading comprehension skills do detectives relying on? Imagine you are trying to solve a mystery. You need to gather clues, connect the dots, and figure out what really happened. Detectives do the same thing when they read. They use special skills to understand what they read better. These skills help them find hidden clues and make sense of complicated stories. One key skill detectives use is making inferences. They read between the lines to understand things that are not said directly. For example, if a detective sees a broken window and muddy footprints, they might guess someone entered the house without saying it outright. Students can do this too by looking for hints in the text and thinking about what they imply. Another important skill is drawing conclusions. After collecting clues, detectives put all the pieces together to figure out what is true. For instance, if a story mentions a missing necklace and a broken vase, they might conclude that someone was in a hurry. Students practice this by summarizing what they read and figuring out the main message or lesson. Detectives also focus on cause and effect. They look at how one event leads to another. If a character forgets their umbrella and gets wet, the cause is forgetting the umbrella, and the effect is getting wet. Recognizing these links helps students understand why things happen in stories and what might happen next. Using context clues is another skill detectives relying on. When they find unfamiliar words, they look at the words around them to guess what they mean. For example, if a sentence says, "The detective examined the evidence carefully," and the word evidence is new, they can figure out it means proof or clues. Students can do this by paying attention to surrounding words and sentences. Monitoring comprehension means detectives check if they understand what they are reading. If something doesn't make sense, they might reread or ask questions. For example, if a paragraph is confusing, they pause and try to clarify the meaning. Students can practice this by stopping periodically and asking themselves if they understand what they just read. Activating prior knowledge is like detectives using what they already know to solve a case. If they read about a storm, they might think about their own experiences with rain or wind. This helps them connect new information to what they already understand. Visualizing is another skill detectives use. They create mental pictures of scenes or characters. If a story describes a dark forest with tall trees, students can imagine what that looks like, making the story more real and easier to remember. Analyzing text structure helps detectives see how a story is built. They notice if the story is told in order, like a timeline, or if it explains causes and effects. Recognizing these patterns helps students understand the author's purpose and follow the story better. Practicing these skills can make reading more fun and less frustrating. When students read like detectives, they become active thinkers. They ask questions, look for clues, and connect ideas. This makes understanding stories and articles easier and more interesting. To improve, students can try pausing to ask questions, highlighting important clues, summarizing what they read, or using graphic organizers to map out ideas. Reading different types of texts, like stories and informational articles, also helps build these skills. Thinking like a detective while reading turns a passive activity into an exciting puzzle. It helps students stay engaged and understand more. With practice, these skills become second nature, making reading a lot more enjoyable and effective.